Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about Persephone, the maiden and queen of the underworld, receptive woman and mother's daughter. Here are the contents of this presentation. To begin with, let's look at the first part. Persephone the goddess. The goddess Persephone was worshipped in two ways: as the maiden or the Kur, which means young girl, and as queen of the underworld. These two aspects of Persephone determined the duality of both the goddess and the archetype. As the core, Persephone is associated with symbols of fertility, including the pomegranate, grain, and corn, as well as the narcissus, the flower that lured her. As the queen of the underworld, Persephone is a mature goddess who reigns over the dead souls and Cerberus. Her genealogy and mythology. As we have already known the main part of the story about Persephone, we just review the mythology through some pictures. Persephone was the only daughter of Demeter, the goddess of grain, and Zeus. Persephone was a carefree girl, and Hades fell in love with her. With the permission of Zeus, Hades decided to abduct Persephone to be his bride. One day, when the young girl was playing and gathering flowers in the field, Hades suddenly appeared out of a vent in the earth, took the screaming maiden by force and carried her back to the underworld. Demeter did not accept this situation. She persisted in seeking Persephone's return and refused to function. Thus, nothing could grow and nothing could be born on the earth. Finally, she forced Zeus to heed her wishes. Zeus then dispatched Hermes to fetch Persephone. But before she left the underworld, Hades gave her some pomegranate seeds, which she ate willingly. Having eaten the pomegranate seeds, however, she would now spend 1/3 of the year in the underworld with Hades and 2/3 of the year in the upper world with Demeter. Later, Persephone became the queen of the underworld. For the heroes and heroines of Greek mythology descended to the lower realm. Persephone was there to receive them and be their guide. Here is an interesting story that Persephone once contended against Aphrodite for the possession of Adonis, the beautiful youth who was loved by both goddesses. The dispute was brought before Zeus, who decided that Adonis should spend 1/3 of the year with Persephone and 1/3 of the year with Aphrodite, and should be left to himself for the remaining time. This is a little similar to the fate of Persephone herself. Persephone the archetype. The core. Archetypal maiden. The core was the nameless maiden. She represents the young girl who does not know who she is and is yet unaware of her desires and strengths. Their attitude is that of the eternal adolescent, indecisive about who or what they want to be when they grow up, waiting for someone or something to transform their lives. Mother's daughter. Persephone and Demeter represents a common mother-daughter pattern in which a daughter is too close to a mother to develop an independent sense of herself. She always believes mother knows best. Passivity and dependency are the core problems of this archetype. As a result, other aspects of the personality usually do not develop. Animal woman. A Persephone woman's innate receptivity makes her very malleable. She will try on whatever others expect of her. She unconsciously conforms to what a man wants her to be. Child woman. This archetype is a combination of sexuality and innocent, which is rather popular in some culture. A brief description of this archetype is a woman with a girl next door look, posing nude. The author gives an example of Brooke Shields here. She was a famous American movie star who looks beautiful and innocent, and she always played the part of a young, virginal, and desirable girl in her movies when she was young. At the same time, the media described her as a sheltered and obedient Persephone-type daughter of a mother who firmly managed her career and her life. This picture is a magazine cover of Brooke Shields and her mother. Guide to the Underworld. This aspect of Persephone archetype develops as a result of experience and growth. Persephone, the queen and guide of the underworld, represents the ability to move back and forth between the ego-based reality of the real world and the unconscious or archetypal reality of the psyche. Symbol of spring. Persephone, the core, is familiar to a woman at the stage of life when she was young, uncertain, and full of possibilities. In the seasons of a woman's life, Persephone represents spring. Persephone is youthfulness, vitality, and the potential for new growth. Women who have Persephone as a part of them may stay receptive to change and young in spirit all their lives. Cultivating Persephone. Placing a positive value on receptivity is a first step in its cultivation, and the necessary step is kindness toward oneself rather than impatience and self-criticism. Cultivating dreams often turns out to be rewarding. People can learn to be receptive to images that arise spontaneously in their minds. Persephone, the woman. Young Persephone. The archetypal little Persephone is quiet, good little girl, the kind who is often dolled up in pink frilly dresses. She is usually a well-behaved child. Chances are that young Persephone is an introverted child. A young Persephone is likely to do what will please the other person rather than resist. Thus, she learns to be passive. In contrast, with the support to do so, a young Persephone can also learn to trust her inward way of knowing what she wants to do. She gradually learns to trust her innately receptive style and becomes confident of her ability to make decisions in her own way and in her own time. Parents. A Persephone daughter is often a mommy's little girl fixed in a Demeter Persephone pattern with her mother. This type of mother often treats her daughter like an extension of herself, who contributes or detracts from her own self-esteem. Thus, a Demeter is usually an overly intrusive mother. A career-minded Athena mother may take pleasure in being this child's mother one moment and be frustrated at her daughter's apparent indecisiveness and inability to say what's on her mind the next. An Artemis mother frustration is different. She is much better at accepting her daughter's subjective feelings. Her irritation is directed toward her daughter's lack of will. Many young Persephone do not have close relationships with their fathers. Ideally, a young Persephone could have parents who respected her inward way of knowing what was important to her and trusted her conclusions. Adolescence and early adulthood. Young Persephone's high school experience is usually a continuation of her early life. However, adolescents need to have some privacy. At this stage of growth, an overly intrusive parent handicaps the development of a separate identity. Typically, a middle or upper-class Persephone woman attends college, but education is usually a pastime for such a girl, not an occupational prerequisite. Work. She may move from work to work in the hope that one will really interest her, or she may be fired when she doesn't meet deadlines or take too much time off. As a core, a Persephone woman does best at jobs that do not require initiative, persistence, or supervisory skills. However, the situation is quite different if she matures into queen of the underworld, when she is likely to enter a creative, psychological, or spiritual field, and she usually works in a highly individual way, commonly without the proper academic degrees. For this description of the archetype, I think Emily Dickinson might be a good example, as she works in a highly individual way, and her poems are wrote in a creative way about life, death, nature, etc. Relationships with women. A young Persephone woman is comfortable with other young women who are like herself. Her closest friend often is a girl with a stronger personality. The Persephone evokes maternal responses in peers and older women, who do favors for her and look out for her. Relationships with men who prefer girls. Three categories of men are drawn to Persephone women. The first, men who are as young and inexperienced as she is. Second, tough men drawn to her innocence and fragility. And third, men who are uncomfortable with grown-up women. Sexuality. Like Sleeping Beauty or Snow White, a Persephone woman is unconscious of her sexuality and is waiting for the prince to come along to waken her. Sexuality has the positive effect on the self-esteem of a Persephone woman. Marriage. Marriage is something that often happens to a Persephone woman. She gets abducted into marriage when a man wants to get married and persuades her to say yes. Men choose them, not vice versa. Persephone women who are unwillingly brides only make partial commitment. She spent only part of the time married, and the rest fantasizing about other men. Children. A daughter who has a stronger will and more definite ideas than her Persephone mother may end up telling her mother what her mother ought to do rather than vice versa. If both mother and daughter are Persephones, they may become much more alike, especially if they live together and become mutually dependent on one another. Persephone, mother of assertive sons, may feel run over by them. Some sons and daughters of Persephone mothers thrive on having non-intrusive mothers who love them and admire their independent spirit. If she herself has grown beyond Persephone the core, she can guide her children toward valuing the inner life as a source of the creativity. Middle years. Although the archetype of Persephone the core remains eternally young, the woman herself grows older. A middle depression results when these realities become obvious to her. However, if she is changed into Persephone the queen of the underworld at midlife, she will be spared a depression. Later years. If in the course of her life a Persephone woman has evolved from core to queen, in her later years she may have the presence of a wise elder who knows the mysteries that make life and death meaningful. Or, if the worst possible scenario for Persephone is followed, she may have never recovered from a depression. Psychological difficulties. Identifying with Persephone the core. To live as the core means being the eternal girl who does not commit herself to anything or anyone. As long as a woman's attitude are those of Persephone the core, she will either never marry or she will go through the motions but do not make the commitment for real. She is always passive and would wait until something moves her. Pitfalls for Persephone. Deviousness, lying, and manipulation are the potential character problems for Persephone women. Usually, Persephone women avoid anger. They do not want people to get mad at them. They feel dependent on the generosity and goodwill of others. Narcissism is yet another pitfall for some Persephone women. Their thoughts are dominated by self-questions like, how do I look? Am I witty enough? Do I sound intelligent? Etc. In the underworld, psychological illness. Persephone was a sad maiden who did not eat and did not smile. This phase is analogous to a period of psychological illness through which some Persephone women must go. Some Persephone withdraw into a shadowy inner world, a world to which only they have access. Ways to grow: becoming a passionate sexual woman. The Persephone woman may also transform into a sexual sexy lady. Persephone may represent the underworld aspect of Aphrodite. She may view her husband as Dionysus, the evoker of passion, rather than Hades, the captor. Then she can return to her husband voluntarily, uncovering a capacity for ecstatic religious experience. The archetypal affinity of the goddess Persephone for Hecate and Dionysus may provide a clue to the ecstatic, numinous, priestess qualities that some Persephone women develop. Developing potential as mediums or psychics. Persephone-Hecate element, that is an affair of the uncanny, at home in the underworld, and wisely know when she is at dangerous crossroads and must seek the safer route. Becoming a guide to the underworld. Once a Persephone woman descends into her own depth, explores the deep realm of the archetypal world, and does not fear returning to re-examine the experience, she can mediate between ordinary and non-ordinary reality. If she can transmit what she has thus learned, she can become a guide for others. And lastly, a question for discussion. When Persephone was brought back to the upper world, she lied to her mother, Demeter, that she had eaten some pomegranate seeds only because Hades had forced her to. Actually, she ate them voluntarily and willingly. Persephone is innocent in the whole story of abduction, except for this lie about eating pomegranate seeds. Do you think she knew the outcome of eating something in the underworld? Why do you think she lied to her mother? And here is my opinion. In my opinion, she might have known the outcome before eating the pomegranate seeds, because if she did not know at all, she would never lie to her mother about it later. She lied to her mother because she felt the need to tell her mother what her mother wanted to hear. She doesn't want to disturb the image that her mother had of her as mother's good daughter. At the core, she is powerless and passive, which means she needs to depend on others, and that is why she likes lying. Admittedly, deviousness, lying, and manipulation are potential character flaws of Persephone. She, however, has already decided her own fate to grow up by eating some pomegranate seeds. I think this lie symbolizes the transition period for Persephone from an innocent, powerless core to a manipulative, powerful queen. That's all for my presentation. Thanks for your attention.